So I was reading a post on Facebook by a lady, girl, woman, who was appealing for assistance to clean up her home because she has various different psychiatric diagnoses and has been through various different counseling sessions and treatments and so on and so forth. And apparently she's bipolar, she's apparently borderline personality disorder, OCD, ADHD. This poor person has had huge numbers of psychiatric diagnoses. Anyway, her post on Facebook, her first post on Facebook was asking for assistance to clean her home because it's become a mess. And the way she describes it, it sounds like she has become similar to what one would see on the television show Hoarders. And I've always wondered, how do people allow their living environment to become the way a hoarder allows their living environment to become? And this actually impacts all age groups, all population demographics, all sexes, genders, across the board. Obviously, not everybody ends up being a hoarder. Not everybody ends up with piles and piles of magazines or rubbish, and when I say rubbish, some of the ones I've seen, the number of old food containers and so on that they've removed from homes has been monumental. And this led me to thinking, what brings that about? And then I went back to myself for last week. I had no electricity. I work from home. I need to keep myself clean. I need to keep my animals clean and fed. I need to keep myself fed, obviously. I have to keep the house clean. And I have to work. Battery backups only last a specific amount of time. I'm not in the fortunate position of having solar power, so I am reliant on South Africa's energy provider, or rather in this case, non-energy provider, because they're pretty damn good at not giving on power. And I got to the point where I was so overwhelmed with trying to keep my laptop battery alive so that I could work, because without work there's no pay. I was trying to keep clean, so boiling water on my gas stove, thankfully I do have a gas stove. I'm on this plot, so the water comes from a borehole. The borehole only runs with electricity or on generator. So timing everything around when my landlord turns the generator on for the water. Because even dishes need to be washed on schedule. I need to be washed on schedule. And without that water, there's not much I can do. Thankfully, I do have a gas stove. The overwhelm was off the wall. I found myself not cleaning the house because I didn't want to become hot and sweaty, because I knew I couldn't have a proper shower. I mean, let that sink in. I knew I couldn't have a proper shower, and I needed to keep myself clean, so I wouldn't sweep the floors, and I wouldn't exert myself, and end up being hot and sweaty. So all my activities surrounded around planning water, keeping electronics alive, worrying about my freezer defrosting, which it did, and I lost a huge amount of money in terms of food. All because for 7.5 days I had no electricity and no idea if or when the electricity utility would repair the fault. And thinking about a hoarding situation, a person who allows their living environment to become so ridiculously out of control, I actually can understand it. I don't know what the psychiatric diagnosis is behind it. I do know that there will become a stage where the overwhelm is so big that you literally cannot function. Because I was at a point where I couldn't function. I couldn't function. Now, realistically, all I need is to eat and preferably not stink. That's all I actually need. I do need to earn an income, but I would die without an income, but I wouldn't die without an income for 2 weeks. So, how does one get over the mental overthinking? Because it does become overthinking. I literally was planning my planning so that I could plan around my plan to work out how on earth I was going to check all the boxes that I needed to check. And when the electricity came back on, the first thing I did, obviously, was heat up the geyser and have a proper shower. But I started thinking, there is so much that I could have done that is not related to electricity, that wouldn't require me even leaving my little home. But my brain became so overwhelmed, so in such a cycle of overthinking, I couldn't even read a book. You know, I'm studying a course. I have the notes in paperwork. Yes, at night I cannot see. So I would have been able to do study work during the day. But my brain shut. I literally went into a toxic mental cycle and spiral of overthinking. So, what should I have done? Well, I don't know. I could have thought, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about keeping myself properly clean, and there's nothing I can do about keeping all the electronics running so that I can do my work. I could pick up my laptop and go to a coffee shop and try and work there, although my laptop doesn't particularly like connecting to Wi-Fi. It's old. But I could have made a plan. But I didn't, because I went into a state of overwhelm. complete and utter overwhelm. It was like a mini meltdown. And afterwards, I was kicking myself. I have so many things that I could have done. So many things that I keep saying, I haven't got time to do this. I had the time. I literally had the time. It was being forced on me. And I couldn't. I couldn't. My brain went into overdrive. Now, a lot of people say, well, when you get to that stage, you need to meditate. And I will tell all of those people, I cannot meditate when my brain is running 1,000 miles a minute. I can't. I have tried. I have tried grounding exercises. I have tried breathing exercises. My brain goes completely and utterly magoo. It will not stop. It worries and plans and worries and worries and worries. And what if this and what if that and what if something else? What if I miss an order? What if I don't get the order in properly? What if an order is ready to be delivered? What if I need to do paperwork? What if? And yet there was nothing I could do. My hands were tied due to circumstance. And those circumstances turned me into a mass of overthinking. So when you see somebody who is slowly becoming disheveled, who seems to not be taking their garbage out, who stops opening their curtains, because we do notice. We notice it, we just carry on. When you see it happening, step in. You know, if someone had sat and spoken with me for an hour or two and given me alternative options, that I could work around, my brain may have slowed down. It wouldn't have stopped. But instead of 1,000 miles a minute, it might have been going 100 miles a minute. I did have a friend who offered that I come and have a proper shower and charge all my electronics at his house on the Saturday morning, which was on day 6. And he offered on the night of day 5. On the morning of day 6, the electric utility was seen to be working in the area, and it looked like everything would be resolved. And by that stage, I was in such a state that I couldn't see my way through to going and driving somewhere. I don't know if it would have been better if the offer had been made on day 3. I may have found excuses. But my brain was in a complete overwhelm. And I didn't tell anybody. I told one person, the one who ultimately ended up assisting me. The other people on the plot, they are people with generators, and I actually asked them if I may plug in my electronics to get them charged. And I would obviously pay for petrol, wear and tear. And the short answer was no. I don't understand that. I don't understand how people are not willing to assist each other. You know, there are 8 cottages on this plot. And of the 8 cottages, there are 6 generators running. I don't understand that people won't assist. I can't compute it. So the overwhelm includes that. It includes the measure of pure selfishness displayed by people who are in a better position. Don't be that person. Don't be that person who won't give somebody a hand. Don't be that person who closes the door on somebody who says, "Can you please assist me?" You know, you're already running your generator. To plug in an additional appliance is not going to cost you anything. It literally won't. And I was willing to pay. So, overwhelm is real. I do know that the last, since 2020, since the whole COVID thing started and all of that bullshit happened, that life for me became a lot more difficult. That simple things that I used to do became harder. Not because I didn't want to do them, but because I had literally, by that stage, lost everything. I had to beg my hideous brother's permission to move into the property that he inherited under false pretenses and blatant lies, which he had left abandoned for 2 years. I had to beg him to be allowed to stay in a property that he had abandoned. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. How does one do that? And he wanted me to sign contracts and paperwork and all sorts of drivel. At the end of the day, I didn't sign any paperwork. I told him to get stuffed. I did move in, and I looked after his property for 2 years. I looked after it. I repaired what was faulty. I fixed the things that had been falling apart for 2 years of rain damage, 2 years of windows being broken and all sorts of stuff coming into the property. I fixed it. And after the 2 years, he decided I had to pay rent on his abandoned property. I had to pay rent for something that I had been slowly repairing in order to make it habitable. And you have no idea the amount of mold growing on the walls and the ceilings, the electrical wiring system. The place is not suitable for human habitation because it was left abandoned. A property that he lied to get. To his dying mother, I'll add. So my level of overwhelm has been steadily growing since I was turned into a nomad, then a squatter, because I literally was squatting in his property. He took away my safety. And the overwhelm has been growing. I haven't recognized it. I haven't seen it happening. Somewhere along the line, I actually gave up. And I don't know how to fix it. I know that recognizing there's a mistake or a problem or an issue is the first step in fixing it. I do know that. So I suppose that forms part of self-love, is recognizing the cause of something and not beating oneself up for it. I mean, yeah, I have literally messed up. I have literally messed up. I have allowed myself to get to a state where, in despair, I have given up. I haven't given up to the same extent as some people. I was in another town yesterday, and I happened to park near a bunch of, I suppose, I don't know what one calls them, hobos, homeless, street dwellers. Those people have given up. Those people are literally waiting to die, in every sense of the word. And realistically, even if one were to give them R1,000,000, within 2 years, they would be back where they are now, because they would spend it. And no, those people aren't drunks or drug addicts. Those people are down on their luck. And they've been down on their luck for such a long time that they literally have given up. They are literally waiting to die because they don't have the, and I don't want to use the word bravery, but I think one has to be ridiculously brave to kill oneself. I really do. I know I've often wanted to, and there are things that stop me. The biggest one, obviously, is coming back and doing this shit all over again. But what if I do something wrong? What if I end up in a worse position than I currently am in? What if it's worse? What if it's worse? So I can understand why they wait to die, because that is what they're waiting for. And every year in Johannesburg, I'm sure in other cities around the world, there are homeless people who die in the dead of winter. And yes, they are given shelter. Yes, they are given blankets. Yes, they can. These people are literally living outside of a homeless shelter. They get their meals from the homeless shelter. They need to pay for a night of accommodation. They are allowed to use the ablution facilities inside the homeless shelter for free. But they have given up. They have given up fighting the fight. So how much overwhelm have they reached where their brains and hearts have literally shut down, where they can't anymore? They can't. And seeing them yesterday, I know I can't give 100 rand to each of them. I do not have the financial means. And I know that I can't give 100 rand to one of them, because there are sort of 50 of them. I do not have the means to do it. seeing them and seeing where I can end up is one of the reasons I'm actually doing this. It's one of the reasons that if I end up throwing my reputation completely down the drain, at least I tried. Because it's not hard to end up where they are. And 7.5 days of no electricity, not no roof over my head, not no clean water, because I did have water for an hour twice a day, not zero food, because I do have other food barring the frozen food that all perished. And I did cook frozen food so that it didn't all perish, and I actually got some utility from it. But 7.5 days of no electricity pushed me to a state where my brain couldn't compute how much longer before I ended up on the street. A month? 6 months? A year? So, yes, I'm doing this to try and find a reason to make this worthwhile, to try and keep myself off the street where I'm waiting to die. Because I don't think I do have the guts to end my life. I really don't. And I certainly don't want to end up in a situation where I'm paralyzed and I have to be looked after by somebody else. I can't think of anything worse. I can't think of anything worse than damaging the last of my brain by taking an excess of medication in order to end it, and losing the little bit of faculty that I do have, losing my ability to speak and think coherently when I'm not in overwhelm, of course. How long would it take for me to end up on the street? Because my hideous brother and his mother, because she's not my mother anymore, set me up and took all the security I spent 30 years building away in one fell swoop. And I need to recover from that. I need to pull myself towards myself and figure out a way to have some form of safety again, to feel safe. Because now the fear isn't the parents dominating, the hideous brother bullying, the now dead brother bullying, the sister bullying, because they are all bullies. It's not that anymore. Because I don't deal with any of those people at all anymore. The fear now is landing up on the street with nowhere to turn, nobody to have my back. I can't expect a friend to take me in indefinitely. I can't expect anyone to take me in with 11 cats and a dog. I can't expect it. And I can't let them down. So, when you see someone who is so overwhelmed that they start hermiting, that they stop doing little things like opening the curtain. You don't notice them because they're not around, where their mail is piling up inside their postbox, if there's even such a thing anymore, where you don't see their garbage on the road, you don't notice movement, you see the garden is overgrowing. Either call someone who is professional to go in and assist, or go and ask them if they're okay. Because you don't want to wake up one day and there's a coroner's van outside that house and discover that what you were noticing was somebody who had actually died inside their house. What you were noticing was somebody who had been hoarding and ended up having a tumble of rubbish fall on them and crush them. You don't want to wake up to that one day. So when you notice it, because you will notice, we all notice, we just choose not to. When you notice someone who is so overwhelmed that they can't figure out how to pay for their groceries at the checkout counter, ask them if they're okay, because your words could be what stops them from ending up as a street dweller waiting to die. Anyway, on that rather somber note, have a great day now.